Agneta, there is an ongoing military exercise in Sweden with US troops, and the exercise is called Aurora. Could you please explain us what is this exercise about and why is this exercise organized and what is happening in general?
It was a big question. First, to mention something about the insulting to the Russian or the former Soviet Union people about Aurora, the name. It was the name of the ship that launched the shots that started the Russian Revolution in 1917.
So you mean
it was Aurora.
This is a symbolic provocation,
historical
provocation?
It must be. I see it as a provocation, and I think that Russia sees it as a provocation. There were many questions, and I'll try to say something about it. In 2014, they signed host nation support to NATO. Host nation support to NATO, which means that they train now if Sweden is attacked and they go to war and defend themselves and they can't do it that good or they don't have power enough, then the host nation support will come, the US will come, and that they have been training. So the Swedish soldiers have been training for war against what I can see, Russia, from Stockholm down to Gothenburg and in Gotland. So the US troops has come to Sweden. Not only US troops, but a lot of other how should I say, not only guns, but vehicles. I have here how many soldiers they landed in Gothenburg. It was 1,435 soldiers.
When did they land, these soldiers?
I'm not sure exactly the date, but it must have been some couple of weeks ago to take part in this. There we had a huge demonstration where I was one of the speakers at the seminars and information about what this was about. Plus these 140 Swedish troops are about 20,000. But the US troops are 1,435, and there is also 570 other foreign soldiers. They are from other NATO countries like France, Estonia, Lithuania, Norway, and Denmark, and the US. And in Gothenburg, where they landed there, they are training the host nation support, as I said, to give and take foreign military support. Among other things, there are some Patriot robots and 100 soldiers who are those who can deal with these specific weapons. And there are also in Eastern Sea a huge military maneuver at the same time. I mean, it's really outrageous. It's terrible. There will be two, I don't know the word in English, örlogsfartyg from US with a crew of 750 soldiers. It's I think it's jagare. It might be hunter.
It's the soldiers, jägers.
Yeah. And they have it's USS James E. Williams and the ship USS Oscar Austin. USS Oscar Austin belongs to the US Marine destroyer squadron, and they took part in the war early on in Korea, in Vietnam, and in Iraq. I mean, it's long ago they were used as, I think, aggressive weapons. At the same time, there is a NATO yearly marine exercise in northern, it's called Northern Coasts in Eastern Sea. In the exercise plan for Aurora, there is a cooperation between this exercise and Aurora. So the exercises are held separate, but they can have connections. And in the Mälar, where I come from, Stockholm, the Mälar Lake Mälar area, this is the biggest exercise area for the ground troops. And there the US takes part with 3 companies. One is heavy bandwagons company, war wagons, stridsvagnar, war wagons, and it's M.F. Abrams. We know about Abrams. It has been used in many wars. And they use it for the moment in Yemen. Abrams. Is it a shame that we have them here? It's a shame. And in where Saudi Arabia is launching a war, they use the US Abrams to conquer this poor country of Yemen. So, and on Gotland, the island of Gotland is also helicopter company. There are helicopters. They are 80 soldiers, and the helicopter is named Chinook, Apache. The Apache helicopter we know from different wars all over the world. Apache are extremely important, and it's really a shame that they are naming their war machines from Indian tribes Apache. It's really a shame. Well, beside the helicopter, there will be U.S. Marines and other National Guard soldiers will train war on Gotland.
So it sounds like Sweden is really a platform for the US.
I don't hesitate to say that we are the chosen country, the chosen platform for war on Russia. That I can't explain in other ways, and it's extremely dangerous. And but glad to say that there are mounting resistance against this. But as we have newspapers who really accept this one, informing about what's going on, we in the peace movement have heavy work to inform what is going on.
Could you please explain what is happening in Gotland and with Gotland, the island?
Yeah, well, that's what I said. Here in Gotland they have deployed. I think that Gotland will be as it was during the Cold War. I happen to know about the peace researcher Owen Wilkes. Owen Wilkes was biking on Gotland in 1981, and the police took him and expelled him from Sweden. But no explanation. But I have come to understand that what he was doing, because he was an expert on antennas which guides warplanes, which guides all kinds of communication. He was an expert on antennas, and he was biking and stopped and took notes and saw an antenna and wrote it down in the notebook. Then he continued, and then the police came and took him. What had he done that was such such reaction. He understood what I think is correct, that the United States of America has, during the Cold War, been allowed to install war launching antennas. That's why he was expelled. And I found a book, I have it brought in with me, where he also was a crucial person because he did the same thing in Norway. So there, why I'm saying this is that now they're back again. And but people in Gotland are extremely angry. So I'm happy for that they have a resistance there. But you imagine that Gotland is in the middle of the Eastern Sea and very strategic, and for launching attack on or installing antennas and things for war launching, for war directing. You need a lot of things to launch a war. That's why I think it's, and you can see here in Gotland that they were also, foreign helicopters have been deployed now in Gotland, together with all kinds of Apache helicopter and others. So if you just look at the map, you understand why Gotland is strategically so important.
What is your opinion about Åland Islands? What is happening with Åland? It's a demilitarized zone, but what are the interests in Sweden towards Åland Islands, and how is the US interested in Åland Islands?
Well, Sweden and Åland they are Swedish speaking, and they wanted to belong to Sweden historically, but they are sort of an independent island, but in a way formally, and Finland belong sort of connection with Finland, but they want to be independent. This is also one thing that is very silent, but we can understand from the exercises I was talking about, when they needed to go through a British huge aircraft carrier, went through Öresund and up through Eastern Sea, and it was really difficult because there is a demilitarized zone that in a way hinders complete trafficking with these kind of boats. So I think that it was, they started then to understand, oh God, Åland is a problem for us because they have the water surrounding Åland is also a demilitarized zone. So I think that from that on, they started to discuss how could they come away with this demilitarized Åland. I haven't heard the latest. I'm not really, but I know that we had, in Sweden, had a peace meeting on Åland last month with 20 Russians and 20 Swedish to discuss the Ålands and also discuss peace issues. So the peace movement has done this, but I'm not sure about how it has proceeded. I can't answer where we are at the moment, but I suspect as both Gotland and Åland are strategically important for US, you can imagine what kind of platform it is so close to Russia to launch an attack on Russia from Gotland and from Åland. So I think we have to keep an eye on it. We really have to keep an eye on what's going on Åland. I don't know more than this.
Yeah, but you didn't hear about it because it's silenced, and it's silenced because it is so important.
Yeah.
You talked about silence in our conference and being silenced, and you have a text in your shirt saying, "We will not be silent." Could you please explain the history of this text?
Oh yeah, this T-shirt I always have when I am on the barricade when I'm fighting, and it's for one reason, because this has an historical background. In 1941, there was a Christian group in Germany who fought against Hitler,
The White Rose Group.
White Rose. And one of their slogans was "Wir wollen nicht schweigen," or "We will not be silent." But why do I have this? During the war on Iraq, or in front of the preparation for the war on Iraq in 2002, women in New York, elderly women, the youngest I think was about 61, the eldest was over 100. They put on this t-shirt and clogged the whole Times Square in New York. They sat down. Many of them were in wheelchairs and they had all kind of crutches and everything. So the police came and tried to do something with them to lift them away and say, "Oh, I think we are the only one with natural hips here," said the police. They wore this t-shirt to show we will not be silent. And when I was in New York a couple of years ago, I stayed with a friend who had been sitting in the New York this campaign, and she gave it to me. So this is a historical t-shirt for me, and it is a strength. It's strength. I feel good when I put it on. Mm. It's a message for you and for others. Mm.
But you said that there is very much willingness in the European Union and in NATO countries to silence people.
Yeah, it is. I mean, what the Chomsky said, by the silence you understand the importance, and it's very true. So it's also a weapon. If you don't talk about it doesn't exist.
Silence is a weapon.
Silence is a weapon, and media is one of the war enabler. Mass media is a war enabler by the silence and disinformation. But most of the time it is enough by silencing. But we also have those who have as their job to formulate press releases and send it to Reuters, and Reuters send it as the truth. Those public relation firms are Hill and Knowlton, which created the story about the Iraq, killing children in Iraq. It was a fabrication. Hill and Knowlton, Ruder Finn, Burson Marsteller, and 100 more, they fabricate press releases, and in the case of Iraq, even make movies, fake movies, to present as facts, and then they can come away with it. It was one of the factors that their film that later on was revealed was a fake. Was one of the important tools for Bush, the elderly, to start bombing Iraq.
You have a very long experience. You have lived the Cold War, and now you are living the Second Cold War, you said. So could you please explain us what is the difference between the Second Cold War and the First Cold War?
Well, during the former Cold War, you had sort of a stronger Soviet Union. You had the countries surrounding Soviet Union, like the Eastern Europe. It was sort of, and that's why, actually, after the Second World War, the deal not to get invaded immediately, because there were plans, and they actually, this is very little known, that already in 1941, the US B-52 bombers were ready to start from Mildenhall base in Britain to bomb Moscow, because they wanted to get rid of Soviet Union after the war ended, and they were allied during the war, but then they were apart. This is Daniel Ellsberg, one of the Pentagon's advisor. After he quit Pentagon, he has revealed a lot of interesting papers. So now they don't have this buffet. Now they are up to the nose, like in Ukraine and in the Black Sea. and in the Eastern Sea. And up in the north, well, there they have always been, up in the northern Norway, they have, but not so blunt as it is now in the Eastern Sea, as they have now bases in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and also Georgia, and well, all these countries surrounding the whole Russian continent. So they are very close. And I want to add one which is not considered basis, but for me, the Trident submarines are actually, they are big as this house almost, huge submarines. 2 of them are outside under the ice cap in north of Russia, aiming at Moscow. So they have, I should say that Russia is, I don't know the English word for it, they are trapped in a way. And the other 10 are outside in the Pacific, where the US have a lot of bases, but they have all the Trident nuclear bombers. They are, I mean, one Trident submarine are loaded with nuclear weapons which have the capabilities, if launched at the same time, to eradicate the whole northern hemisphere. One Trident submarine.
You mentioned the so-called host nation support agreement, which Sweden signed not long ago
in 1914. 2014.
Yes,
yeah.
2014, and Finland also signed at the same time with Sweden. So what does this host nation support to NATO agreement, what does it mean to Sweden? And is it debated publicly?
Well, the authorities say, oh, it means almost nothing, but we understand that Sweden's possibility to have anything to say in a war about troops deployed in Sweden using nuclear weapons, you have no say. That's what it means. If they decide to go, if US decide, or NATO troops or whatever, to use Swedish landmass, because it is what it is about, they can do it if this is signed, host nation support. It is that what it is.
So in fact it gives the whole Swedish territory to NATO.
Yeah, that's how I see it, and I think that today you don't need to be in NATO because they have so many agreements. So even if we get rid of the host nation support and they say we won't sign it, you have Esrange still there, and you have one thing, you have Leerskild and Lövön listening in on all Russian cables.
What is this Leerskild and Lövön?
Leerskild is 9 Swedish miles south of Gothenburg in the south. And it takes on all Russian cables underwater, listening in, sending it to Britain or to the US. And the same with Lövön in the middle of Stockholm. All the cables coming from Russia through Sweden are taken and sent, all the information. It is from, as I said, I think earlier, from military information, all kinds of political information, all kinds of things that you send. It is taken on and serves Pentagon's current control of Russia.
So it seems to me that Sweden is a kind of gathering in a mass scale information about Russia from satellites, from the cables, and sending downloading all this information and sending that to Pentagon, to the US.
Yeah, that's true.
So Sweden is a mass information provider for the US military. Actually.
Yeah, it's true. And Norway in the north, with where NATO significantly on Svalbard, which I said in 1920 was declared a zone of peace. You shouldn't deploy anything that could be used for war on Svalbard, a rather huge island north of Norway. There NATO had their latest meeting, and it is significant that they don't care about all these how should I say, agreements. So Svalsat was one of the important satellite downloading, helping US to bomb Iraq. And it's via satellites. And so Svalbard has been important in all US recent wars. But then you have to study the satellites, and I don't go into that. But we have to understand that the satellites are extremely important. But I used to say, but you need to have downloading stations, and there we can go in and say, stop it. That's what I'm lecturing about in Sweden. They say, what can we do? Stop Esrange, for heaven's sake. Reveal what it is doing. But there we are not there. But I was at a conference in northern Norway last October, as I said, and it has started to discuss. But it has taken time to discuss these things, actually, among the scholars. They were there. Hall was filled with 100 scholars who are experts on these things. But they had never discussed it. But now they did.
So as a conclusion, I would like to ask you about what you said, that Sweden is in fact participating in common war planning against Russia, and what is happening now is planning a war against Russia.
Yes.
In Sweden, and can you explain what kind of war and why this aggression against Russia? Also in the media.
It's very difficult to explain why this aggression against Russia. Because for all obvious reasons, Russia is not a threat to anybody. They have a military about France in size. And they have the world's longest border. But what Russia has, they have Putin and his government, who is not interested in following US directive. Yeltsin sort of was a little bit shaky. So they could do almost what they wanted in Russia. But Putin said, stop it. This is enough. This is our mineral resources. You can't just come here and grab it. This is our oil, our gas, everything. I mean, it's natural. Every country have this. They can't do that. That was but this is long ago. The US was trying to, with all their help in France and everything, in 1917, as I said, to crush the revolution, to stop it. And they were fighting from 1917 to 1922. I think it took 5 years to get rid of the French and the US and the British who wanted to destroy the revolution. So it is a long, long, long story. But as the US has taken on almost all countries of the world for their personal or reason, or for to flourish and to get richer and richer. I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane, actually. It is insane. So China and Russia are now the two enemies. And they are together in BRICS. Brazil, but now Brazil is not in their hand, but they are at least have a kind of a cooperation. I like that. We will see. I can't predict anything, but we have to be alert. We have to understand that we deal with a power that is on the decline. But
US power.
The US power is on decline. But they have the world's biggest military. So I can't give any recipe. It's impossible. But we have to be alert, and we have to reveal the plans and reveal the cooperation in Sweden and go against it. So that's why we have fought no to NATO and a lot of other organizations. But we have to be more. We have to be more scared for what we see, and I don't see that. I'm not sure what will. Isn't it enough that they destroyed Libya? Isn't that enough that they destroyed Syria? Isn't it enough they have destroyed entire Afghanistan and more? What do we need more to see that they are prepared to do anything and we have to go against it? That I can't say anymore.
And the last question would be about the role of the Swedish mass media in this anti-Russian warmongering.
Oh, it's essential. It's essential. You can't do anything without media. It's impossible to do anything without mass media. So that's the first, so to say, victim in a war. It's to see to that your media is with you, and they are. So I can't say it in another way. This silence, lies. How should I say? I have a lot of papers at home with Putin on the front page and demonizing Putin, and silencing. So I mean, we have now, as I said, a situation that is far more worse than during the former Cold War. I can't say anything more. I think it's extremely dangerous situation,
so
and people has to understand that.
Could you please be more precise? How is it far more worse, and how is it extremely dangerous?
Far more worse as we have all these countries up to the nose of Russia. You have them so close. I admire Putin. I admire Lavrov that they keep sane and not make a move that. But you have such a mass media that really wants it to change. In a way, it's like smelling blood. It's like, now we will take on Russia. So all these things together has made a ring of hostility towards the rich continent, Russia. I can't explain it in another way.
Thank you very much, Agneta, for visiting Helsinki, and thank you very much for the interview, and I wish to see you again in Helsinki, hopefully soon, and I wish you all the best, and best for your health, and the best for Sweden as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this was our Hybridge Research Center TV studio, and our guest was Agneta Norberg from Sweden. Thank you for your company, and see you again very soon.